Hello and welcome to Happy Cells and Souls. My name is Julie Powers and I'm a licensed Zumba instructor and I'm a business partner with the Juice Plus company. And my missions in life are to help people understand that life is better when you're dancing through it and to inspire healthy living around the world. But my expanded mission is to create better health at the cellular level and more joy at the cellular level. And that's what these videos are all about, is talking to people who have interesting stories, who bring light and love into the world, who spread joy, because you know what? First of all, we only get one body while we're here, so we got to take care of it. But we also are supposed to be joyful and happy and spread that throughout the world. And so my belief is that it doesn't matter if we come from different backgrounds, if we have differing opinions or beliefs on politics, religion, whatever. If we keep our minds and hearts open, we can learn from everyone because everyone has a story to share. And so today I'm talking with my friend, Amy Thompson, and Amy and I met back in 1991 when she and I were both in, you can say Melbourne, Australia or Melbourne, Australia, depends on if you want to use the accent. So Melbourne, Australia, and we were there for a significant amount of time. So we got to spend a lot of time together. But she had a different experience there because she was volunteering for different things that got her interested in the field of social work and counseling and school counseling. And so I would love for you to just tell us a little bit about how that experience in Australia changed the course of your life for your career, you know, and sort of took you on a new trajectory into school counseling. First of all, tell us that story.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I was an art teacher before and I wasn't working when we were in Australia. It was very hard to get a job. And the US consulate has this office to advise Australians who want to study in the US. And so I volunteered there once a week, and it was just so fun. And it was really interesting to talk to people about their hopes and their dreams and their plans and help them find possibilities. And this was, of course, pre-internet, so books, and then just your experience. So talking about what going to college in the US was like and things like that. And it was just so positive. And I just thought, gosh, this would be such a great thing to get to help people with all the time. And that's what school counselors do, I guess. So maybe that's what I should do. And so eventually when I got back and was working again, I started researching programs and decided that's what I want to do. So I went back and got my master's in school counseling.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you said that you started right away working in the schools. What grade level did you start working with?
My first year was junior high. And then we moved to the city. So I got a job at a K-6, like, so elementary.
Uh-huh.
And then we were in Australia and then I came back and I was teaching in a K-8 district. So I did middle school and elementary school kids. I was the art teacher for all those kids. And I did that for a while, and then I took a leave of absence and then pursued my master's, and then I've been in high school ever since.
All right. So your school counseling has always been with high school students.
It has.
And
it is a 12 certificate. Like I could do elementary or middle school, but I've been in high school the whole time.
so you and I were talking before I hit the record button that we both graduated in 1985, way back. Whoa, way back.
Don't talk about that.
And yes, there was no internet. There was, you know, everything was different. And life seemed to be a little less traumatic all the time. And it feels like the school counselors didn't have quite as much on their plate when we were in high school that you guys really have to deal with on a regular basis. So for those people who don't have kids in the school system anymore, or maybe they never did, or maybe it's been so long that they don't really have a connection to it anymore, can you kind of give us an overview of what do you guys deal with on a regular basis as a school counselor now compared
Sure.
to 1999 when you started,
Yeah.
you know, counseling to 2022?
Yeah. You know, I mean, really, if you go back to like the early in the profession, which, was like the 70s or late 60s, it really was vocational guidance. It was career, to help kids with career, figuring out what they want to do after they graduated from high school. That's
Right.
really what all counselors did. But by the time I got my master's, it had really evolved, and it's still this way, to like these sort of 3 domains. So academic, educational. So making good choices in high school, thinking about your course selection, getting them supports if they're not successful in school, whatever, all the academic stuff. And then of course, career and vocational in college. And then of course, the social emotional part, because we all know that none of all those things is what makes a person. You can't
Right.
separate them out.
Right.
And so, it's those are the kind of the 3 domains that school counseling you get trained for. So when we went to school, I don't think when I was in high school, I don't think there was mental health counseling as
No.
part of the training. There were sometimes social workers in the school that did that, and we still have that. It's just the way it breaks down is different, but you get the whole kid, and you get a group of assigned kids, and they are your students for 4 years. I happen to specialize as a college and career counselor. So I really just focus on post-high school planning with students.
Right. Right.
But I have done general counseling too. So yeah, you take the whole kid, and it's all about helping them make good decisions now so they have good possibilities later, and supporting them with whatever they need to be successful so that they can launch and go forward with their lives.
Yeah. Well,
Basically.
what I love is that you've been in this field for so many years, that you have been able to watch what happens when these kids leave high school and they do follow that track that you guys have sort of forged together to figure out the best plan for those kids. And as we know, plans change, right? You were an art
Absolutely.
teacher and you decided to become a school counselor.
Yep.
Things happen in our lives that we think we have it all mapped out. Boy, don't I know that. We think we have it all mapped out, and then whoosh, whoosh. No, it's not the way it goes.
Yep.
So can you tell us a little bit about, maybe some of those stories with kids that you were able to really connect with and really help them sort out what they wanted to do in terms of their personal goals and personal feelings versus maybe what they thought the expectations were that were being wrapped around them from family, friends,
Yeah.
Yeah,
It is really hard, and there's no you want there to be this formula that if you do these things, all the little pieces of the puzzle will come together and everything's going to make sense.
Yeah,
sure. It'd be
sure.
so nice if you could just do those things, and it isn't always like that. I mean, as you said, we've made change. My husband made a huge career change. We do that, and that's part of human nature. But I do think society and the community that you're in depends on that. There can be a lot of pressures on kids about choices. So kind of how the better rapport and relationship you can have with students, the more you can help them. And so it's one of the reasons why we really advocate for better counselor to student ratios, because if you don't have so many kids you're responsible for, you have more time for the kids you do have.
Right.
And to help them and say, well, where are you? What do you care about? My job as a counselor is not to tell the students what they should do. My job is not to project onto them. My job is to have them tell me what they care about, or maybe help them figure out what they care about because they're not sure, and then help them figure out how that functions in their life, whether that's really better relationships with their parents or their siblings or with friends, or whether that's getting along with a teacher better in a classroom, or whether that's figuring out what they think they can do that would apply to a future plan. I mean, it's all those things.
Right.
So yeah, there've been so many times. I have one student in particular I have a lot of students I've stayed in touch with, which is great. And they do all kinds of things. Some of them go exactly on the path they were going to go on and they stay on it. And others, do one thing and then completely switch. And, that's life. I have a student in particular I've stayed close with who now has just opened his own restaurant in Chicago with a friend. But after he he really struggled in high school. He just didn't like school very much. He's very bright. He was like to argue. But we connected, and so we'd keep talking off and on. And I wasn't his assigned counselor, but he just would come say hi to me, whatever. And his senior year, we were like, what are you gonna do? It's your senior year. What are you gonna do next year? And he's like, I don't know. I'm like, well, what do you do in your spare time? And so we talked for a while, and he liked to cook, and he worked at a restaurant, did a little bit of cooking there. And I'm like, oh, have you done our classes here? Because we have a food and restaurant program. And he's like, no. And I said, you can take the final and they'll let you take it. So they did. And so he learned some more kitchen skills and went to a culinary school, but just for a semester, and got his first job in a kitchen in Chicago, and just worked his way up. And he ended up being a sous chef at a Michelin star restaurant in New York City.
Amazing. Yeah.
In like 10 years.
Wow.
Less than 10 years.
So he had a gift. He had a gift, which is
he
great.
did. And I think once he found that he could do something really well, and he just was, and he was willing to put the work in, like it just connected for him. And he loves what he's doing, and he's successful, and he seems really happy, and that's what you want, right?
Yeah, for sure.
You
You
know
know what it feels like to me is that your role is to almost grant permission to each student to be who they want to be, and to tell them that it's okay to have a dream, to have a goal that fits them from their insides out. Like really, I know there are a lot of tests that you can administer to, students,
For sure.
I don't know if they still do like the Myers-Briggs and all of those different things, but to sort of help people figure out, oh, that's an interesting industry that I might want to explore, or that's a position that might be cool, because there's so many things that didn't even exist, 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. And so I love that you get the chance to get to know each student, to really say it's okay, because some kids I know feel like they're being pressured to go to college, and maybe college is really not the right thing for them. Or maybe a vocational trade school is the best thing because they have this knowledge that they can put to work that really, it's amazing. Or maybe they just need to take a gap year and go travel. Like you love to travel. You've been traveling the world ever since I've met you. And, you can learn a lot through just traveling. So have you had any students where you've been able to talk about that and, like encourage them to go see the world? Or do you feel like you're in a position where you can't really encourage them to do that because you might have the wrath of the parents upon you?
No, I really encourage kids and parents to keep their minds open about the possibilities, because, I say it a lot, there is not only one way to do this, to find your career direction. And, my high school is a pretty competitive high school. The kids are generally really good kids. They try to do all the right things, but I think sometimes kids get so caught up in like checking the boxes and following the rules that they don't take the time to think about why they're checking the boxes and why they're following the rules, or why does that matter to them, and how does that matter to them? And it's like I say sometimes they're like hamsters on a hamster wheel, and it's like, well, I can't stop and think about that because I have to keep the hamster wheel, going. And so a lot of times I said, sometimes you need that year to do something really different. And I'm not saying sit in your parents' basement and play video games.
Right.
I never support that as a gap year. But there's so many things you can do. And I've got all these resources on our website, and I'm like, look at all these different programs there are for a gap year. And there are very few times in your life that you can sort of step back and sort of, because you don't have children, you don't have a mortgage, you don't have car payments, you don't have all those same responsibilities your parents might, but you don't as a student. And maybe take that time. Maybe this is the time to take that deep breath and really reflect and do some more kind of internal thinking. And because I don't think that a lot of them have time to do that.
Yeah, I think that's great. I would also think that, with all the mental health issues, that you, as more of a career vocational training person, you've still been pulled into all that mental
Oh, for
health
sure.
issue. And I mean, there are things that school counselors now have to plan for that we never would have dreamed of, like school shootings and, just the craziest things that have come up.
Yeah.
What do you find to be the most challenging, or what is difficult for you to deal with in this particular role?
Yeah. I mean, the level of anxiety that kids feel is pretty pervasive, and, you know, way more kids feel that and have, to the point that it's problematic. A certain amount of anxiety is life.
Yeah.
We all, and sometimes anxiety motivates us to do stuff, get things done, because it's like, if I get that done, I don't have to think about it anymore, so not all anxiety is bad, but kids today definitely have more anxiety than certainly I did. I mean, yeah, definitely. So I think anxiety is probably the most common and can be really difficult, because parents, they love their kids and they don't want them to have the struggles. And then oftentimes anxiety, the best thing is actually a little bit of that tough love, and not so much, too much like, oh, poor baby, that actually can make anxiety worse.
Right.
And so I think it's almost like helping the parents try to find, I'm not in their house either, right? So trying to go like, how can we, what's working, what's not working, and trying to help the parents come up with a plan to keep their kid going to school,
Right.
being successful, but also, and getting the help they need if the anxiety is too high, and just that it's tough, it's really, really hard. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things. And the anxiety can be stemmed from very real things, the fear of school shootings, obviously the pandemic, and will I bring something home and get my grandmother, because my grandmother lives with me, and, very real things. Am I going to fail this class? All those are very real things, to also just like nothing that's really real and tangible, but just has this overriding feeling. So it's, that's, I think, probably the biggest shift I've seen. It's just the overall general level of anxiety among teenagers compared to
Right.
when I was in high school.
Yeah, I mean, I know that it's always a very challenging time. High school's never easy.
No.
But it seems that kids these days have a little more to really think about and worry about,
Yeah.
with this pandemic has, really shifted so many things. So, um, are there any pieces of advice or words of wisdom that you would want to share with people in the last 2 minutes of our conversation?
Sure.
Whether it's to parents, or to kids themselves, or somebody in the
Yeah.
school, what would you like to share?
I think the biggest thing is parents, just need to love, 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 love their kids. And if they're not sure what's right for them, get other people to help them figure it out, because they don't come with these directions, and every kid's different, right? And I always would say, like, my two kids are very different. Me and my brothers are very different. And when parents say, oh, they're so different, I'm like, you're doing your job as a parent, because you're letting them be who they are, as in you're not making them be a cookie cutter and be the same. So you should feel good about that. And don't be afraid to like set down some rules. My kids still joke about, like, I was really strict about sleep, because I think sleep is so important. I think it's a really big deal for adolescents. So be difficult. Like, I would not let them sleep in until 1 o'clock on Saturdays and Sundays. Like 9 o'clock, I'm like, okay, it's time to get up. I was vacuuming. They were like, what are you doing? I'm like, you have to get up now. But I knew that Monday morning would just be that much worse
Right.
if we didn't try to keep our sleep, and eating, relatively well. And they were not allowed to have any television, phone. They could have like a boom box to listen to music. That was it in their rooms. So their rooms were, I always said, this is your safe space. This is your haven. This is your escape. You don't have to get on your phone and like read messages from people at 2 a.m. You need to sleep. And so this is your deplug like space. And obviously my kids are a little older. And so the phones weren't such a big thing until like middle school, but they didn't have anything. And I think that's so important. So that would be my advice, parents.
Well, I think that's a whole other topic that we
Yeah.
could discuss about in a separate conversation, because that, I mean, really, that is a big, big
It's
topic.
huge.
Because so many kids feel like they need to be plugged in 24 hours a day, and
Yeah.
they need to do immediate responses. They need to look their best, be their best, compare to everyone. So that's a whole
It
other
is,
can of worms,
but
but
it ties into the anxiety.
yeah,
If
it
you look at
does.
when the anxiety levels started going up.
Yep. For sure. For sure. It's a curse, and it's amazing.
Oh, for sure. I
phones
love
in
my
our
phone.
pocket and everything.
It's right here.
Yeah. My alarm went off during the call because I forgot that I have an alarm that goes off every Sunday night at 8 o'clock. I don't normally do these videos at this time.
Yeah.
So anyway, I do so appreciate you sharing your
Thanks.
personal story, and hopefully whoever's watching this will find some bit of information that helps you understand where the counselors are coming from, and maybe where the kids are coming from, and maybe just, listening a little bit more and understanding where each person really is feeling most at home and what's going to be best for that future for that person. So thank you, Amy. I really appreciate
Julie.
you. And I am just so grateful that you're part of my life.
Yeah, likewise.
Hey.
It's been fun.